You haven't heard a word yet. Tonight, I want to talk about change and transition. And of course, change, that's what we want everybody else to do, isn't it? You know, we don't want to do it, but we want everybody else to change so that our life will be different. And yet, of course, you know, any changes that we're going to do at all have to come from within ourselves. They absolutely must. And change to me means that you change from a feeling of separation and isolation and loneliness and anger and fear and pain and into a state of peacefulness. Wonderful peacefulness where you can relax and really enjoy life as it comes to you, knowing that everything will be all right. You know, I run into that premise that life is wonderful and that everything is perfect in my world, and I move into my greater good always. And that way it doesn't really matter to me which direction my life takes, because I know it's going to be wonderful, so I can enjoy all sorts of things. You know, Gerald Jampolsky says that love is letting go of fear, and there is either fear or there's love. And if you're not in a love space, if you're not coming from the loving space of the heart, then you're in fear and all those other things like isolation and separation and things like that, and loneliness and anger. They're all part of the fear syndrome. And that's really what we want to change from. We want to move from fear into love, and to make that as more or less a permanent state for us. You know, even the planet itself these days is very much in this period of change and transition. We see it all around us. We're going from an old order into a new order. And some people say it began with the Aquarian age. And at least the astrologers like to describe it that way. But you know, to me, astrology and numerology and palmistries and all those other various methodologies are just ways of describing life. They explain life in a slightly different way. And people use different language to do this. But the astrologers say that we're moving out of the Piscean age and into the Aquarian age now. And you know, in the Piscean age, we reached outside of us and looked to other people to save us. We looked for other people to do it for us. But in the Aquarian age, which we're entering now, people are beginning to go within and find that they have the power to save themselves. And this is a wonderful, liberating thing for us. Now, some people get very frightened because it seems to be responsibility. But actually, we're discovering our ability to respond to life, not in a victim way, but in a way that gives us power. In a way that gives us power. We're finding that we're getting a connection to what the AA people call the higher power, and what I call our higher self, so that we can contribute to saving ourselves. And it's a wonderful feeling when you don't really have to be dependent on an outside person, but to know that you have within you tremendous abilities to make positive changes in your life. You see, if we're victims, then we feel isolated, we feel in pain and fear, and we're always looking for someone else to do it for us. But now we're taking, as I said, responsibility for our own lives, and we're beginning to understand how we can contribute to the experiences that we have and how we can change those experiences if we don't really care for them. And of course, you know, from the moment you decide to make a change until you get your demonstration, as we call it, or when you get what you want, we have this transitional period. And that's when we're moving between the old order and the new order. It's a time of releasing old beliefs and old habits, and of learning and practicing and then living the things that we're working on. The new beliefs or the new feelings or the new methods or the new behaviors. And while you're getting those in place so that they are a natural part of your life, you're going to have a lot of vacillating in that period between the old and the new, and you go back and forth between what was and what you would like to be or what you would like to have. And if you decide that you're going to release an old belief and that you're going to create a new one, during that transitional period, you're going to go back and forth. And this is a time when we often get very angry at ourselves because it's like, well, I know all about the new, why aren't I doing it? I must not be good enough, or I must be a bad person. But that's silly, because anything that we're learning takes time. And you go back and forth until you're really strong in the new belief, until you've gone to the complete shift. You know, you may begin to do an affirmation for something, and you're doing well, and then something happens, and you say, oh, I can't do that, and you go back to your old worry habit again. Well, that's just a period of vacillating. It doesn't mean that you haven't learned anything, and it doesn't mean that you're back where you started. It's just part of that back and forth thing. You're not settled in your new habit yet. And that takes a little time and a little practice and a little patience. And you want to be patient with yourself. Be patient with yourself. You know, you want to build yourself up instead of beating yourself up. There's a tremendously different image if you just think of it. Do your thoughts build you up, or do they beat you up? When you beat yourself up, you know, that's not being very loving to yourself. Sometimes we don't need to make outward changes so much as to go within and just sort of take what we already do and alter it just a little bit. Somebody was saying to me tonight that they were thinking about a new apartment and they were worrying that there wouldn't be enough money. And I said, well, why don't you start affirming there will be lots of money? And you know, it's just like a tiny little thing, and you almost change 2 words. But it's a small way of changing the way you look at a particular situation. Somebody was asking me, saying that they were in a lot of pain. And, you know, they kept using the word pain so much. And they said, is there another word that I could use? And I thought of the time that I smashed my finger with a window. And I realized that if I really gave into it, I was going to go through a very difficult period. So the minute it happened, I started to do some mental work right away. But then I remembered I was referring to my finger as having a lot of sensation. And it did. It had a lot of sensation. And you know, by insisting upon viewing it in that particular way, to me, I think helped it heal much quicker and helped me handle what could have been an incredibly painful thing. Because I knew that if I could alter my mind, it would be better. If we can just alter the way we think just a little bit. So those of us who want to change, we're moving from an old order to a new order. And lots of things are happening on this planet. I don't think things on the planet are so very different than they used to be, but we seem to be more aware of things. I see things in the paper all the time, and I think, oh my goodness, are we really doing that? And then as I continue to read, it seems like we've been doing it for a long time, but it's coming to the surface. We seem to see more negativity. But you know, if you want to clean your own mental house, if you decide to work on yourself and you're going to go inside, you have to look and see what is there. You have to look and see what your beliefs are so you know what to change. You can't clean out the negativity if you don't see it. If you're going to clean your own house, it's the same thing. You have to look around and see where the dirt is. You have to pick things up and dust them and look around and polish them or throw them out or replace them. But you have to see what's there. And if we're going to make a big transitional phase on this planet, and really help to heal this planet, we're going to have to look and see what's occurring here. We're going to have to see what's happening and to uncover the negativity. And the things that have been hidden for a long time are going to come to the surface. And I think that part of this transitional phase that we're going through, I think part of the catalyst for this is this crisis called AIDS. You know, I really want to help create a world where it's safe for us to love each other. That's all. Just to love each other. A world where we can be loved and accepted exactly as we are. That's what you wanted when you were a little child. When you were little, you wanted to be loved just as you were, even if you were too skinny or too heavy, or if you weren't smart enough, or you weren't like the person across the street. or maybe you were scared, but you still wanted to be loved. And it's the same thing we're all looking for now, only we're not going to get this love and acceptance from other people unless we can give it to ourselves. When we feel good enough to be loved, then others will love and accept us too. It's really that simple. I think that we come to this planet to learn and to practice unconditional love. And it's not always an easy thing to do, but I think that's what we've come here for. To have unconditional love, first of all, for ourselves, no matter what they said or what they did to us in the past. And also to give that same unconditional love to other people, to just allow them to be who they are, and to get rid of this them and us, because it's not them and us, it's all us. And we need to know that. And if we're going to heal this planet, we have to know it's all us. And there are no groups that are expendable, and there are no groups that are less than. There may be many people who are in so much pain that they're being harmful to other people. But you know, if we can understand that acts of violence come from a person who was a traumatized child. Now, this is not to condone people who do violent things, but to understand that if we want to change them, if you want people to become loving and peaceful, then you have to teach them to come from a loving space of the heart. And you're not going to teach them that if you don't know how to do it yourself. You don't create wars and kill people. You don't beat people. You don't throw people into prisons or torture them or do things like that. You teach them to forgive and to love themselves, so they'll never do those violent things again. Because you realize that people who love themselves cannot hurt themselves, and they cannot hurt another person. And to me, that's the answer to world peace and harmony and all sorts of wonderful things. So to help as many people as possible learn to love who they are, it's very simple. That's my work in this world, is to help people love themselves, to love ourselves so that we can get to this new order of what I see as unconditional love and peace and plenty for everyone. And I know that it's possible if we can just get the nonsense out of the way. I believe that when we leave the planet, the only thing we take with us is our capacity to love. We take our capacity to love with us, and that's all. We don't take our relationships. We don't take our automobiles or our bank accounts or our jobs. We take our capacity to love. And we have many, many opportunities to open our hearts on a much deeper level than we have. To me, love is the answer. I really believe that love is the answer. It's powerful. It helps us. It helps other people. How do you give love to the world? What are you doing to create your own inner harmony? What do you do on a daily basis to make yourself feel good inside? Or do you just sit and bitch about what you don't have? Well, it's one way of handling it, but it doesn't change the situation. You know, you're not going to do it by being mad at yourself or being mad at other people. And you're not going to do it by blaming people. And you're not going to do it by being a victim. So what is it you do? How do you express unconditional love in your life? Even a little bit. Is there a small area of your life where you're willing to give unconditional love? How are you experiencing peace within you and around you? And if you're not doing it now, are you willing to begin? Are you willing to start creating inner harmony and peace? Another question to ask yourself is, do you really want to change? Do you want to change? Or do you want to just sit there and complain about what you don't have? Or do you want to be a person who really has and creates a much more wonderful life than you have now? And if you're willing to change, you can. If you're willing to do the work involved, which means changing the way you're thinking, then you can change your life for the better. People come up to me a lot and say, "Oh, Louise, you've changed my life." Well, I don't change anybody's life. I don't do that. I'm not a healer. I don't heal anybody. I don't change anybody. I don't have that kind of power. Only you can change yourself. And only you can clean out the pain within you. I can't do that for you. I can stand up here all evening and say wonderful things and give lots of good advice, but you're the only thinker in your mind. And you're going to make the decision of what you want to do with the information that you're being given. I have no power over you. You have the power, and you need to know that. We think so often that we are helpless, but we're not helpless because we have our minds. We have our minds. And you shape and mold your life from moment to moment by your thoughts and your beliefs and your attitudes. And you also want to know that you really are important to this world. You might say, "Well, I really don't do anything." But you are. Just the fact that you're alive is important. And your life has meaning. It really does. And you can contribute to the peace and the harmony of this planet just by using your mind. Now, some people get involved politically, and some people march, and some people do Peace Corps, and some people help feed the homeless and do all sorts of things, and that's fine. But you can also contribute to the peace and harmony of the planet just as much by how you use your mind. And remember, every time you think, every time you're thinking, you're connecting with like-minded people. Think of that for a minute. I heard a quote not long ago that I really like. Robert Schuller, who's with the UN, said that the human species needs to know that we deserve to have peace. We have to accept it mentally. See, a lot of people believe that war is inevitable and that war is forever and that we're always going to have war. And I think those people are contributing to it by their thinking, contributing to the continuance of wars. But if we know that we deserve to have peace and that it is possible, it can become true for us. And as we begin by creating peace within us, and then within our small circle of family or friends, and at our workplaces, and then we let this peacefulness ripple out, we will find more and more peace on the planet. So remember that practicing inner peace will help us to connect with like-minded, peaceful people all over the world. Spirituality connects us all over this planet on a soul level. And the sense of cosmic spirituality that we're experiencing now is just wonderful. When I talk about spirituality, I don't always mean religion. You know, religions have a tendency to separate us. And religions often tell us who to love and how to love them and who's lovable and who isn't. To me, we're all lovable. I really believe that we are all worthy of love. For love, to me, is the only thing that's going to bring about lasting, positive changes to our planet. Our spirituality is a direct connection with the ultimate higher source, and we don't need a middleman for that. Begin to see our spirituality connecting us all over the planet on a very deep soul level. So what sort of like-minded people do you want to connect with? Every time you get into judgment and criticism, you're connecting with like-minded people out there who are judgmental and critical. And this will come back to you. Remember, what we give out always comes back. And every time you meditate, you're connecting with like-minded people out there who are meditating. And meditating to me really means just closing your eyes and going within and being quiet long enough to hear your own inner wisdom. You really have the answers within you. You have all the answers within you. And you need to quiet down long enough to hear them, And that, to me, is the purpose of meditation. It's a connection with yourself, with your higher self. So every time you do that, you're also connecting with other people who are also doing that. And every time you do a visualization for healing your body or for healing the planet, you're also connecting with like-minded people who are doing the same thing. And several times during the day, you might stop and ask yourself, what sort of people am I connecting with now? Just sort of catch your thoughts where you are. And are you sort of going, oh, grumble, 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 it's all your fault? Or are you thinking thoughts to create inner harmony and inner peace? Because if you create inner harmony, you're going to have outer harmony too. Remember, if we want to heal the world, we really have to start with healing ourselves. Because the center of your world is where you are. You are the center of your world, and so are you, and so are you. Each one of us, we are all the center of our own world. So the world goes out from us like ripples in a pond. And when we create harmony inside, when we're peaceful within, then that goes out into the world. That harmony and that peacefulness radiates out, touching people and places and things. You know how it is? Somebody can walk into a room and they don't have to say a word, and you can be attracted to them or you can be repelled by them. We react to what they're giving out. Somehow we feel those vibrations. We pick up what people have going on inside of them. So let's make sure that we are radiating harmony and love. I believe that in order to change the planet and to change other people in our lives, we need to first change ourselves. We need to love ourselves. We need to be willing to contribute to our own inner peace and inner harmony. And we also need to be honest with ourselves. You know, we're so good at hiding from ourselves. But if we're going to make changes, we need to have self-honesty. And that doesn't mean putting ourselves down, but it does mean being willing to see what is within us that needs changing. It's very self-destructive when we lie to ourselves. It's not loving ourselves, and it's not being nourishing at all. We need to be honest with ourselves, and we also need to be honest with other people. And we need to learn how to say no in a loving way. And not always yes, and then do things that we don't want to do and then resent it because we weren't honest enough to say no. And I don't think it's so easy to be honest with other people until we can become more honest with ourselves. And the main value of being honest is that whatever we give out in life, we always get back. And this works on all levels. If we belittle or judge others, then we too are going to be judged. If we're always angry and blaming others, then we encounter anger wherever we go. If we steal someone's time, or if we take away someone's self-respect, or if we refuse to acknowledge someone else's good work, we can expect these dishonest actions to boomerang back to us as negative experiences. On the other hand, every time we treat ourselves with respect, every time we nourish and support ourselves and others, this also comes back to us as positive experiences. No matter how we may try to justify it, dishonest actions never work. They never work. And the more you get on the spiritual pathway, the quicker it comes back to you. When we take something that doesn't belong to us, whether it's a paper clip at the office, to major shoplifting or robbery, we are in effect telling the universe that we don't feel worthy of earning our own, and that we're not good enough, that we believe that there isn't enough to go around, that we want to be stolen from. Or we may believe that we must be sneaky and grab to get our good. You know, if we believe that it's a dog-eat-dog world, then we're going to get eaten, because that's the way it works. These beliefs prevent us from experiencing abundance because they put walls up around us, and you don't get to experience the joy and the peace and love in your life. If we take from life life will take from us. It's that simple. And these negative attitudes, they're not the truth of your being. You are a divine, magnificent expression of life, and you deserve the very best. You have to know and accept this. Our planet is abundantly plentiful, and our good always comes to us by the right use of consciousness. What we believe about ourselves and about our lives will become true for us. If we want to change our circumstances, we must change our belief systems. Ask yourself periodically, what do I really believe about this? And think about it. And what do I feel? And do I really want to do what they're asking me? And why am I doing this? Start examining your thoughts and what's going on inside of you. Be honest with yourself and find out what you're really thinking and believing. Don't just be on automatic pilot all the time, and say, oh, well, this is the way I am, or this is what I do. Why do you do it? And if it isn't a positive, nourishing experience in your life, see if you can figure out where it came from. Where did you first do it? Was that something you were taught as a child? Maybe it's time to let that one go. You don't need that anymore. If you have oh, this is just the way it is, well, then with that attitude, you can't change. It's not possible. And also, if you know everything, if you're a person who knows it all, who knows everything, you can't change because you can't let a new idea get in. We want to be willing to learn and to grow. And what we're always working for is more understanding and awareness and knowledge so that we can do and experience things differently. That's all. You don't want to berate yourself for what you used to do or where you are or what you don't know or you don't have. Just learn more. Study, go to classes, read books, listen to tapes, talk to other people. There's so much stuff that we can learn now. It's just wonderful. Learn about yourself. Learn about your beliefs. Learn about the way your particular mind works. And is it working in a way that really enhances your life? Explore a lot of new avenues so that you can begin to understand more. Allow new ideas in and expand your consciousness. We hear so much these days about addictions, and we think there are many, many kinds of addictions besides just the chemical ones. When we say addiction, we immediately think, oh, the chemical thing. But there's also pattern addictions, and every one of us has some sort of addiction, because they're really patterns that we adopt to keep ourselves from being in present time. We don't want to deal with what's in front of us, so we have some way of getting away. We don't allow ourselves to be where we are and to know what's really going on in our own lives. So we each have an addiction. I don't know what yours are. We all have something. Whatever it is that we do. For some people, it's a food addiction. For some people, it's a chemical addiction. And for other people, it could be an emotional addiction. Remember, you can even be addicted to finding fault in people. A lot of people like that one. You can be addicted to fear. If you're somebody who's addicted to finding fault in people, then no matter what's going on, you find somebody else to blame. It's their fault. They did it. Or maybe you're addicted to running up bills. There are so many people that are so addicted to debt. And they do everything they can to be over their heads in debt constantly. And it doesn't seem to have a lot to do with whether they have any money or not, the amount of money. And so being in debt, if you think of it, is an addiction. It's a pattern addiction that we do. You can be addicted to rejection, to having people reject you. And if that's one of your addictions, then everywhere you go, you're going to attract people who reject you. Who's watching me? Who's going to reject me? Who's not going to accept me? However, the rejection out there is always a mirror, a reflection of the rejection that we have within us. If you don't reject yourself, nobody else is going to reject you. Or if they do, it certainly isn't going to matter. You won't pay any attention to it. If you get upset because other people are rejecting you, you have to know that's because you're rejecting yourself. And so ask yourself honestly, how do I reject myself? Where am I not accepting? So you might think about addictions and what addiction do you have, and could you change your addiction, your negative addiction, into a positive one? If you're going to be addicted to something, why don't you be addicted to loving yourself, or addicted to doing positive affirmations, or addicted to something that really supports you and loves you? We also talk a lot about stress these days. It's such a key word. Everybody is stressed out, or it's so much. It's a catchword, and we use it so much these days, and I think it's really become a cop-out word too. Oh, I'm so stressed out, or this is so stressful. It's always stress, stress, you know. But think about what stress really means. You know, stress to me equals fear. So next time you're thinking about how stressed you are, ask yourself what you're frightened about. Ask yourself how you're overloading yourself. How are you burdening yourself? What are you doing to yourself that's creating this fear within you so that you don't have inner harmony and peace? Don't just use it as a word to be a cop-out. Stress is not inner harmony. Inner harmony is being at peace with yourself. And when you're at peace with yourself, you do things one thing at a time, and you don't let things get to you. You can't have stress and inner harmony at the same time. They don't equate. So I see stress as fear. And ask yourself then, if you're feeling stressed, how can I release this fear? How can I be at peace with myself? What can I do? Nothing has any power over you. And don't give a little word like stress a lot of power. You are the power. You are powerful. You're the one that can make the changes. So to me, love is the answer. And if we're going to make changes, it has to come from a loving space of the heart, so that the changes will be permanent. Well, they'll be permanent. And when you love yourself, life is so much easier and much more fun. And people resist loving themselves so much. I know I did at the beginning. But really, when you do, it's just so much more fun. It really is. You enjoy life. You wake up in the morning and you're glad to find yourself there. Start connecting with yourself. Support yourself. Really do wonderful things for yourself. And then you can easily and effortlessly give to the world. It won't be a struggle at all. And that light that you're using to go within and find your own love, you'll be able to carry like a beacon for other people who are still in darkness. Remember, every person that learns to love themselves makes it that much easier for other people to do it too. Becoming enlightened is finding your own light and then shining it for other people. And know that you can do it. You're really powerful. And you can make the changes that you want. Just take the first steps and keep going. Little step after step after step. You know, don't insist that you do it all in one leap. Take the steps. Remember, impatience is a resistance to learning. That's all it is. It's like you want the answer without learning the lesson or doing the steps. So, you know, ask yourself, what is it I need to do next? And even if you don't know the answer, the very fact that you're asking it, the universe will hear and will present it in front of you. They'll say, this is what you do next. And then maybe you say, oh no, but I don't want to do that. As I said before, I want to create a world where it's safe for people to love each other, where we can all do that. I don't want dependency. I don't want people to be dependent on me. That's not what I'm looking for at all. I don't want to be a guru or a healer. I'm just a simple lady with a simple message of love yourself and get your act together. I want you all to be healthy and prosperous and loving and peaceful and filled with joy, because that's going to make a better world for me to live in. All right, let's do questions. I see there's a mic here and a mic there and there and there. So, yes.
What I was going to ask about is going through all this process myself, I found how easy it is to be negative. And it's sort of like a natural...
an old family pattern.
Yeah, well, it probably is.
Yeah.
But it seems to be very easy and very natural. And I'm wondering what the source of it is. Why is it so pervasive? It seems like it's sort of everywhere. It's the natural way.
It's not everywhere. No, it is not natural, and it is not everywhere, though it's a lot of places. And if you're a person who thinks negatively all the time, you will attract to yourself other people who do it, and you think the whole world is full of it. However, as you do make the changes, then again, you connect with other like-minded people, and you'll find that probably your circle of friends will change. Either they will change themselves, or you'll have different people. So it sounds like you're also in that transition period of going from one to another, and the old pattern of thinking very negatively just keeps bouncing up. But, you know, if you keep practicing, it'll work. It really will.
Okay, thank you.
That's my belief anyway. All right, there's a microphone up here, I see.
Louise?
I'll go. Yes.
First, I'd like you to know that there is something new and special in the Boston area. It's a women's healing circle. One of my friends in the circle and I have been discussing is we know we can use affirmations to change our attitudes. And we believe that our thoughts and our meditations can send love and peace to the world. But can we affirm and affect a specific person's attitude or actions towards us?
That's manipulation, and you can't do that. If you do, it'll boomerang. No, you can see them in love and light and know that they're at peace with themselves, but you can't manipulate their actions. You don't know what their spiritual lesson is, and you really don't have any right to interfere, like you wouldn't want somebody doing that to you. And you may think that what you're wanting for them is the best for them, but if it really was, maybe they'd have it.
We're just talking about sending and receiving love back and forth.
Oh, love is fine. Oh, yes. I mean, as long as it isn't a specific thing.
No, just love and kindness and peace.
You can do that for the whole planet. And peace. Oh, that's a wonderful thing to do. That's what I'm talking about, sending out thoughts and connected with other like-minded people.
And that they return it to us.
Whether they do or not.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
How do you deal with people in, say, a work environment that are constantly negative, and you're being positive, but that negativity is around you?
Well, one, it's interesting that you're in a work environment where everybody's negative and you're positive. You know, I'm wondering why that is. Why don't you start knowing for yourself that you always work in an area that is peaceful and joyful, where people really appreciate you and appreciate life. And don't say that so-and-so has to be that way, but start knowing for yourself that this is where you work. These are the kind of people that you are surrounded with. Because by doing that, you can either help them change some of their stuff because they'll be responding differently, or you may find yourself in another place where people are like that. You know? And when you think of them, don't think about how negative they are. You know, everybody has every quality in them. And respond to the joyfulness or the peacefulness or the respect or whatever that's in them. And start knowing that they have those qualities and they can come to the surface.
Even though they're constantly saying negative things?
Well, I wouldn't pay attention to that, because we want to get your consciousness to change.
But if your own consciousness changes, there are enough people around that are negative. How do you get...
When your consciousness really changes, they won't do it. Or you won't be there. So they're still reflecting something within you. What do I need to work on myself? What is the main thing that you complain about them?
But if they're also negative to other people, not to me per se, but negative, always negative to other people.
Okay. Why are you there? Why are you there?
I like it there.
Oh, you like it there? Okay, start affirming that you're always surrounded by wonderful people that see life in the most positive way and that are a joy to work with and be around.
Thanks.
Okay? All right, it's your consciousness. Yes?
Me?
Yes, yes, up there. Whoever's up there.
I guess I heard a lot of things tonight that really felt incredibly good, but I do have one burning question.
Sure.
And that's, where does God fit into all this? I hear you talking about the power that I can have, but yet in my recovery program, I'm learning that I am powerless and I have to ask for help. How does the affirmation...
When you turn to the power within you, that to me is God. Now, I purposely don't use the word God because I find that it turns off a lot of people. But to me, all the words that I use are really speaking of God because God is all that is, you know.
That part of it, it's us.
And I don't see any separation at all. I think that you are being powerful when you choose your higher power, when you turn to your higher power. Now, you may be, according to the group that you're in, powerless over a certain situation, but not when you turn to your higher power. You know, it's your connection. The more you turn to your higher power, the more powerful you become. And I think it's just a little bit of semantics there, but I don't think there's any difference in the meaning.
Thanks.
Okay? All right. Yes? Speak to me.
My name is Peter.
Oh, hello, Peter.
I've never spoken in front of a room this big before.
Well, you have now, honey. You are doing it.
I guess my question is really simple, and it's how. I live in a big city by myself. I don't have that many close friends. And living alone, I guess, what can I do to bring this stuff into myself when I am by myself?
Okay,
I'm not
you know, it's interesting because I can't tell you how many couples will say, oh, if I were only by myself, it would be so easy to do this. It works both ways.
If only I had a companion.
If only you had a companion. Well, what are you doing to create one? Do you just wish?
Yeah.
Well, that's what a lot of people do. What do you believe about yourself? Do you believe you're lovable?
I'd like to.
Well, what's stopping you? There's someone down here eager. As long as you're there, why don't you state your requirements? You may not get out of this room.
I'll tell you one of the things I'm doing. I'm here tonight.
Yes, that's wonderful. Okay, great. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm not making fun of you because many of us are in the same place. You know, it's one of the reasons that I think the support groups are so wonderful. Get with other people who are also studying, and it helps. It's wonderful if you can have like-minded people that are doing it together. And if you can get a friend who's doing it also, that's just wonderful. But first of all, observe your thoughts. Notice what you're thinking. And if, like this gentleman here, he says, I see negative thoughts all the time, well, that's not a bad thing. It means you're noticing them. You're seeing what can be changed. Start noticing what you're thinking. And maybe write down some of your thoughts every so often and say, are these beliefs going to create the things I want in life? And if not, what could I do? What could I start thinking? There are lots of books and tapes out. Not only mine, but many people have wonderful books and tapes out that you can get ideas, and you just begin where you are. And also you say, I'm willing to change. You know, and the thing I love is this, I'm open and receptive to wonderful, good experiences coming into my life. It's this, you know, you don't say, oh, I'm looking for a new lover. Where I'm open and receptive to, and then state what you want. Start letting the word go out mentally. But I think it's wonderful. You're here and you're ready for the next step. You'll do it. Okay, all right, the lady here. Your turn. I'm doing this one.
I was wondering, when you're in the healing process and you're making a lot of changes, how do you express anger without feeling guilty?
Okay, she says when you're in the healing process and you're experiencing a lot of changes, how do you express anger as positively as you can? No, the thing is that a lot of people get on the spiritual pathway and they think, oh, I must not be angry, I must only forgive, you know? And that's wonderful when you get to that point. But in the transition period, there's a lot of rage inside. And it's good if you let it out. And you can do that in positive ways. You can kick pillows, you can scream in the car, you can take a tennis racket and smash the bed or something like that. But let yourself have a physical expression. If you can be with a therapist who's good at working at releasing anger, that's wonderful. If you can be in a support group where they work on those things, that's great too. There are many ways that you can do it. But you don't want to deny your feelings. Remember, anger is not bad. Babies get angry. Babies get livid, and you know it. But they express it immediately, and then it's gone. It's all gone. We swallow it and smile. And smile, and we do that over and over again, and it lodges in our bodies and it becomes resentment, and that's when we get into trouble. So if you're in the process of making changes and you're having feelings come up, whatever they are, flow with them. And if they're too intense for you to handle, get yourself to a therapist or a support group so you can do it in a safe setting. But don't deny your feelings ever, and don't try to be, to not have them, because you are having them. That's why they were given to you, to get you through situations.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, there. Yes.
I'm a nurse, and I deal with a lot of people that are suffering and in pain and dying.
Yes, yes.
And I find that it's hard for me to separate when I go home. I take that home with me. But I'm finding that I can't separate sometimes, especially in dealing with AIDS patients. I find that the grief is so overwhelming sometimes.
Yes.
And I'm wondering
so
if
what
you
do you do then? What do you do when it's so overwhelming?
Well, I don't know yet. I'm working.
Do you
on
let
that.
yourself have hysterics?
No.
Well, I think you'd better. You can't hold that stuff. The AIDS is bringing up so many issues for people that they don't know how to deal with. And when we see a lot of suffering, it really hurts. And you can't just pretend it doesn't exist. You have to give your feelings an outlet. And if you're really feeling a lot of intense feelings, let yourself have them. Let yourself cry. Let yourself do something. Let yourself look in the mirror and scream it isn't fair, or whatever you're feeling inside. Let it out, because you're only going to create problems for your own body. One of the things with AIDS is that the grieving process takes a full year to begin to get over when someone dies. You have to go through all the seasons, and after that you begin to let go. But what happens if somebody's dying every 6 months, or every 3 months, or every month, or every week? How do you handle the grieving process? Because you don't really get to get into it, and you never get out of it. And many people are dealing with these issues, and it's almost like being a war. People just don't know how to handle it. And those people that are working with AIDS are dealing, I keep thinking of it, it's like sailing on uncharted waters with no map and doing the best you can. And there's a lot of intense feelings that are there. And you have to take care of yourself the best you can. And I know it's not easy. Yes?
I've been recovering from an illness for about a year in surgery, and using your positive affirmations, and really have had a very, very positive year.
Good.
But medically, you have to have lab work done about every 3 months, and it keeps coming back saying, contrary to what I am saying, my positive affirmations, and I really get confused with what to do with that.
Well, are you working with your doctor?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
But I'm working, he's doing the medical stuff.
Yes, and you're doing the other stuff.
I'm doing the healing stuff.
All right. Well, is he doing something positive for you too?
He's a real positive person, and he's very positive about feeling that I'm going to have full recovery. The lab work just isn't cooperating.
Well, don't give too much importance to lab work. A lot of people are doing that, especially people with T cells. They go up and down, and the numbers decide whether you're going to be happy or not. You know, how do you feel?
I've had an excellent year.
All right, you've
it's
had
been
an
wonderful.
excellent year.
Yes.
All right, and you're working well with your doctor, and you're working on yourself, and that's their game. You know, let them, I wouldn't even look at them. You know, let your doctor have that. He needs that information. Let him have that. And you just keep knowing for yourself. You do everything you can for your own health and to improve the quality of your life. And don't let those numbers tell you that you're sick if you're feeling well. Go on what you're feeling.
Thank you.
Okay, dear? Yes.
Yeah, I have a body question.
Sure.
I need your advice, or what techniques can you tell me about that would help me to accept part of my body that I cannot change. It's a birth defect. It's specifically, it's my two legs are different sizes, and one leg is considerably, well, I feel that it's considerably larger and than the other one, and I have a difficult time accepting this. It's not an everyday disease or whatever, so there are no affirmations. I don't know what affirmation I could say to myself or what techniques I could do.
I appreciate the miracle of my body.
Okay.
According to Vogue magazine, let's say, it may not be, you know, the perfect thing, but that is really nonsense. You know, no baby has ever measured its hips to find its self-worth.
Thank you.
And your self-worth has nothing to do with the size of your legs. It really doesn't. Your self-worth has to do with how you feel about yourself. You know, if you weren't picking on your legs, what would you be picking on about yourself?
Well, I'm too busy picking on my leg. I can't think of something.
Well, you know, it's sort of a limited way of thinking, and it's a waste of time because you really have a lot to do in this world. Okay. You know, I don't know why this particular condition is part of you. It is, and that's just what it is. And you can make a big deal out of it, or you can get on with your life and just enjoy and love who you are. And, you know, that to me, remember, your self-worth has nothing to do with that. And it has nothing to do with your lovability. You are lovable.
Thank you very much.
All right, sweetie. Yes.
You've said, among other people, that we choose our parents. You also said there are some people who have AIDS whose parents reject them. Did they choose those parents?
Oh, I think so. Not only do I think that they chose the parents, but I think the parents chose them. I think it works both ways. You know, it's part of the lessons that we've come here to learn. And sometimes we need to have a lesson of opening a heart that is very closed, you know, and we give ourselves like a little obstacle or something. But I think everything is in perfect order. I think the parents that you have are absolutely perfect for you. That's why you're here. You know, if you had really made a mistake by choosing those parents, you would have gotten out very, very early. But if you're here now, they were the perfect ones, and the stuff you need to work out with them is the stuff you need to work out with them. That's part of what it is this time around. Yes.
I may need to have some work to do with this.
Yes. No, you don't. You know, you don't have to believe everything I say. And if you're sort of new to these ideas, it really pushes a button when you say, you know, you chose your parents. I mean, I know the first time I heard that, I went, well, you've got to be kidding. You know?
Thank you for saying that.
Yes.
Thank you.
But the more that you really start examining it, the more it makes sense to me. It really does. So whatever I'm saying tonight, you know, if you walk out of here with one sentence that can help you improve the quality of your life, that's wonderful. You don't have to get it all. Just get what you can and work with it. I support your growth and I love you all. Bless you.
What a great lesson in that. The idea that you take, you know, there's a rule, it's called the 80-20 rule. And in the 80-20 rule, it says everything that you have, all of your stuff, 20% of it is what you use. All of your clothes in your closet, 20%. You just keep using the same 20% over and over. 80% of the clothing that you have in your closet, for so many people, is something that you never use, you don't wear. You look at it, you store it, you think, well, there might come a day, oh, I can't part with that, even though you've been carting it around. Every time you move it and you put it. Take the 80% that you don't use, says Lao Tzu, and give it away. Give it away. Lao Tzu said that when your cup is full, stop pouring. When your cup is full, stop pouring. We have an obesity crisis in the United States, in the Western world. The obesity crisis can be handled if you just read the Tao. If you realize, in verse 33, it says, if you realize you have enough, you are truly rich. If you could just learn something called portion control, where you just take a bite and you say, is my cup full? Stop pouring. Stop pouring. In other words, instead of filling yourself with that which is already a surplus, in the Tao it teaches us to take surpluses and to reduce them, and to take deficiencies and increase them, so that we create balance in our lives, to be in balance. You can take the jewelry that you don't use. You can take the clothing and then once you've given away the 80% that you don't use, take one of the things that you really like and practice giving that away. It's such a wonderful way. Listen to this poem. It was written by a great Persian poet named Hafiz. It says, even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me. Just look what happens with a love like that. It lights up the whole sky. It lights up the whole sky. There's no owing. There's no owing. You don't have to be, you can practice living a state of contentment. This was so powerful for me. You just can't imagine how good it felt for one entire year to walk through every day and say, I'm content. I'm content. I start out every morning of my life. The first words, Hafiz says, that if there's only one prayer that you say every day, make it thank you. Just say thank you. That's how I start. Wake up. Thank you, God. Thank you. Thank you, Source. Thank you, Tao. Whatever you want to call. The opening line of the Tao says, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. As soon as you put a name on it, it dissolves. There's no name for it. It's just endlessly, invisibly, constantly in a state of creating out of a state of love. I asked if I could have water on the stage. They did it. They figured it out. There's Now, I'm going to try to get some of this water, okay? So you get down here and you just, I'm going to just scoop this up. And okay, now tighter you hold it, the less chance you have of doing anything with it, isn't it? How can I experience water? The way to experience water is to just get soft. Just get unbending. And there it is. That's what water is. The minute I grasp it, the minute I try, and Lao Tzu is saying the same thing is true in everything in your life. The more you grasp, the more you try to hold on to it, the more you try to be rigid with it, the less control you have of it. The softer you are, the less rigid you are, the more flexible you are as a person, the more you can accomplish.
In reading the Seth material, Jane Roberts said that we are awake at the wrong time and asleep at the wrong time. That the best time to be awake is between 3 and 6 a.m., wherever you are. And that, she said, virtually every single one of you, and I'd like to put you to this test, every one of you will receive a wake-up call from God between 3 and 6 a.m. You will wake up for a moment, note the time, and then listen to your ego and go back to sleep. Or maybe get up if you got a prostate problem and get right back into bed and say, well, it's 3:30. I don't get up at 3:30 in the morning. Only a fool would do that, you see. And that the best time to be asleep is between 3 and 6 in the afternoon. And that between 3 and 6 in the morning is when the world is silent. And you will, and I've learned this after 6, 7 months of doing this, I've learned that I am the most clear in these hours. And I have begun to have this awareness after 6 months now of being up in these hours that I am losing the paradigm that I was stuck in. And the paradigm that I was stuck in says, if you don't get enough sleep, you're going to be very tired for the rest of the day. And I've only had, let me see how fit I am and how good I feel. Where's my watch? Where's the clock? I've got to find out, well, let's see, I went to bed at 11, 4 hours. It's going to be a deficit of 4 hours, so I'm going to be sleepy all the rest of the day, and then I'm not going to get this done, and tonight we've got to go here, and I'm going to be sleepy then. I'm going back to sleep. Now, there was an ancient Sufi poet. His name was Rumi. And Rumi had, in one of his poems, he said, do not go back to sleep. Do not go back to sleep. Do not go back to sleep. So what I have done, and what my teacher said to me, he said, you will find this difficult at first, because your ego will be telling you all the reasons why this is absurd. So what you do is you wake up and you put your feet on the floor. And then if you want to go back to sleep, sleep with your feet on the floor. Which I have done on a few occasions. But not for very long. And the ironic thing about all of this is that I now, when I go to sleep, it doesn't make any difference what time it is. I can't wait for 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to arrive and to get out there and be, no matter what the temperature is or what city I'm in or where I am, I can't wait for that. And I have eradicated fear from my consciousness. It's just like knowing that I'm protected and that I'm fine and that it's going to be all right. And so I would just throw that out to you. There are probably people in the room here who get up in those hours, not to go to work, but often to meditate or to write or to do their music or to create whatever it is that you're creating or to think through whatever. This is a very, very spiritual time of the day. It is the most spiritual time of the day. It is the time when you have more silence. And as Melville said, silence is God's one and only voice. And you will begin to make a direct-sided communication with the higher part of yourself if you can remove so many of the distractions.
The sacred or the divine part of you wants something very different than this ego part of you. There really are two of us in each and every one of us. One, of course, is the ego. And this ego is just an idea. You'll never find it in an autopsy. It's not anything you'll ever experience in the physical world. It's just an idea. And this idea says that who I am is special and important. And who I am is separate. Mostly who I am is separate from. And who I am is absorbed in my self-importance. And who I am is insane. Because insanity is defined as believing that you're something that you're not. And this idea that we carry around of our separateness, it says over and over again that where I leave off is where you begin. And my separateness keeps me without any awareness of my connection to you or to God or to all of the rest of the environment. It's the separation that this idea has. And it is what keeps you in a state of turmoil in your life. It's not bad, it's not evil, it's not wrong. It's just the idea that somehow the tribe has taught you, and you have taken on this idea that somehow you and the rest of us and God are separate identities. And then there's another part of you, and this is the sacred part of you. And this sacred part of you, what I call the sacred self, what some call the higher self, only wants one thing. It only wants you to be at peace. It doesn't care if you're right or if you're wrong, if you're good or you're bad, if you get a lot or you get little, how much you have, who you're better than, who you defeat. how old you are, how young you are, what color you are, what sex you are. It is not interested in any of that. That's all the work of the ego, the idea of your separateness and your individualism. This part of you, this sacred higher part of you, only wants you to be at peace. My teacher said very clearly, directly to me, very clearly, Nisargadatta Maharaj, 15 years ago, very clear. Enlightenment is being immersed in and surrounded by peace in your life. Enlightened people, the people that you meet that are truly at that enlightened state, are people who are able to express peace, immersed in it, send it out, receive it back, at all moments in their life. And when someone asks, they've asked me, well, what's the difference between these highly enlightened people and the rest of us? Is it that they have unconditional love and we don't? I say, no, that's not the difference. We have unconditional love. They have unconditional love. We have that. The difference is that they don't have anything else. That's all they have. So that if you're on a cross being crucified and someone throws a spear into you, out of you comes what's inside. All I have inside is forgiveness, is love. That's all I have. And of course in Miracles there's this wonderful affirmation. If you don't get anything else today, get this one down. All right? It says, in this moment, it says, I can choose peace instead of this. I can choose peace instead of this. What a great reminder. You're just ready to explode, and you stop yourself and say, I can choose peace instead of this. So there are essentially two paradigms that I need to talk about. I've talked about before at some of the seminars I've done here. I've written about in Your Sacred Self. But in order to be able to understand manifesting, to be able to manifest, you are really understanding this idea that the person in your life who is able to push the buttons that sends you into a frenzy, somebody else could push the same button and you react with love, but that person pushes that button and off you go, and your ego instantly enters into it, and you need to make them wrong. This could be your spouse, this can be an ex-spouse, this can be a lover, this can be one of your children, this can be a mother-in-law, this can be anybody. It can even be a stranger. And they push that button, and you go into a frenzy. What is happening in this moment is that this is a divine master who has showed up in your life, that you should be kneeling down and paying homage to and saying, thank you, God, for sending this divine teacher into my life. I know your ego is really having a tough time with that. But what is happening in this moment is, here is someone who is teaching you in this moment that you have not mastered yourself yet. That's what they teach you in this moment. And that is your soulmate. That is the person that you need to be able to send love from a peaceful inner expression that says, I could choose peace instead of this. And when you are in a relationship with that person, and they push the button, and you are able to be at peace, truly at peace, not acting. Now these great spiritual teachers come disguised as manipulative, cunning SOBs very often. And there's only a few of them in the whole planet. But they move around a lot. Right? And they got a lot of disguises. But until and the test for you to be able to do this is very, very simple. It's a very simple test. Something you can work on when you leave here today. You can work on it the minute that you walk out of here with that one that won't flush. Who keeps coming back. When you have the choice to be right or to be kind, you pick kind. You pick kind. The higher part of you says, be at peace. When you're at peace, you react with kindness. The ego says, be right. It's much more important to be right. Why do you think I subtitled this book, Making the Decision to be Free? You are only free when you lose your self-absorption, your sense of separation from those that send you into those frenzies, and your sense of separation from God. Because God is that divine organizing intelligence that is in all things, including this person who is pushing these buttons and keeps showing up.
If one of us is suffering any place on this planet, then a part of all of us is. The only difference between all one and alone is just one L. A good example of that is watching my mother with my grandmother. My wonderful grandmother, who was almost 96 years old, was dying, and my mother was taking care of her. And she would go in there with a banana, and she would pull the peel down, and she would mush the banana up in her hands or in her mouth like a mother does to her baby, and she would feed it to her mother, and she would cradle her in her arms. And she would take her underwear, which when you get very old and you're getting close to the end of your life, you kind of forget about your hygiene habits. She was always extremely clean, but toward the end of her life, she just lost interest in that. And my mother would take her clothes, her soiled clothes and underwear, and wash them and help her put them back on again. And she would hold her in her arms and put food into her mouth and massage her neck to make the food go down. And I looked at her, and my mother was 68, I believe, at the time, and my grandmother was 95. And I looked at them and said, who is mother and who is child? Which one is which? And wasn't it just an instant ago in time, if there is such a thing, wasn't it just that much time ago that it was reversed? That the one who is now the baby was the mother holding the other one and putting bananas into her mouth and cleaning her underwear and changing her diapers and all of that. And it really brought home the essence of we are all one. And time is just sort of our way of defining what happens in sequence in life. But it doesn't have any meaning. I mean, there's really no time in the world. There's only just the world the way it is. And each of us must accept that if any one of us have any suffering going on, then all of us are a part of that. And that's our responsibility. See, you can't get this transformation that I'm talking about in 1 year or 10 years. The wonderful Chinese proverb said that if you want to think a year ahead, sow a seed. If you want to think 10 years ahead, plant a tree. And if you think 100 years ahead or more, educate the people. Once we educate the people and raise a few generations of people who won't be soldiers and who won't kill and who do love and who do see all of us as one and who understand that a person in Japan who is unemployed as an auto worker is just as much of a human problem as a person in Detroit, even though our proximity dictates that we are more compassionate toward the person in Detroit. That's just because we can't think globally. We're only thinking locally. And that it's still any human being who is unemployed is a problem for all of us. And any child who is starving because they're in Africa, a continent and an ocean away, doesn't mean it any less affects all of us.
A lot of people operate under the assumption that I give my love to people who deserve it, and that's a mistake, isn't it?
Everyone deserves it. Everyone. Gandhi said, hate the sin, love the sinner. And that's a very important line, very important philosophical approach to life. Hate the sin, love the sinner. The things that people do are things that we can help them to correct and to change and within ourselves and other people and so on. And we can teach them and help them to grow to not be destructive. But everybody deserves our love. And until we start thinking that way, we're going to always have dichotomies. We're going to always have you versus me, us versus them. And as long as there's that usness and me-ness and you-ness, there will never be all of us together. See, what we need to do is all go up in a spaceship and look down at the Earth and see this fragile little planet that we live on, and that we are all one on this planet, and that we must all recognize that. Instead of looking for all the things that separate us, instead of building more weapons to destroy us, we must begin looking for ways that we can all get along. And as hokey as it sounds, if we don't do it, we won't survive it. as a species, or it'll be left to generations, billions of years from now, who can evolve past the Holocaust that we'll create, to learn the essential messages of all great religious leaders, all great spiritual people, all great philosophers, that we are love, and that we are the essence of what makes this whole thing work, is all within us. And the truth won't be revealed to any of us until we recognize that we're a part of that truth. We're all a part of it, and we're all one.
This is the ineffable secret, the ultimate illumination, the key to peace and power. You are God. Those are the three magic words. If you will accept this towering truth and dare to stand atop this magnificent pinnacle, universal consciousness will be revealed to you from within. God is there. It is He who peers from behind your eyes, who is your own consciousness, who is your very self. You are not just a part of God, you are altogether God. And God is altogether you. Now, that's scary stuff for a lot of people. We weren't raised to believe that. I'm not saying that you ought to go out into the world and say, excuse me, but you know who you're talking to, that I am God. And the reason that we laugh is because we think of God as the God that we've created in our own image, the God of the ego, the God who's angry, the God who wants special favors, the God who has the ability to heal but withholds it. But there's another word that Jesus used in the New Testament, and this is the God I speak of, quoting him. God is love. And he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in me, and I in him. God is love, pure, unconditional, blissful, divine love. That's who you are. Is this: in all of creation, in all of eternity, in all the realms of your infinite being, the most wonderful fact is that which is stressed in the first chapter of this book. You are God. You are the I am that I am. You are consciousness. You are the creator. This is the mystery. This is the great secret known by the seers and prophets and mystics throughout the ages. This is the truth that you can never know intellectually. If you want to understand something intellectually, what you must do is analyze it, come up with a formula for it, study it, look at other experts about it, and come up to a conclusion. If you want to understand something spiritually, you must first experience it. You must come to know this within. In the New Testament, which I read completely before I wrote Wishes Fulfilled, Jesus is about to be stoned. And he says, "Why would you stone me?" And they say, "Because you blaspheme. You are a man, and you claim to be God." And Jesus responds in his words, "Is it not written in your laws that I have said you are gods?" All of you. We are all gods. We have within us, not the God that so often we are taught is outside of us, but the God that is love, the God that is perfect love, the soul that wants to expand because it is infinite and doesn't want to be restricted. That all things are possible. Again, it's one of those great lines from the New Testament. With God, all things are possible. Now you tell me, what does that leave out? What does all things are possible leave out? That doesn't leave out the possibility that we can defy gravity, that we can soar, that we can heal ourselves, that we can create magnificent prosperity in our life, that we can change the world. I said at one of the breaks here to the audience here tonight, I really believe that if this message gets out there into the world, we can shift the consciousness of this planet. If enough of us begin to believe, we're placing into our imagination a world that we want to live in that has no limitations and that is based on living from a place of love and kindness and God consciousness and spiritual awareness, divine mind at work. I believe it's possible. Thank you.
There's a lot of people out there, many of you, who, while you're having your first cup of coffee, are thinking about the second cup. Or while you're having your appetizer, are wondering if you're going to be able to get a dessert. And all of this stuff called appetizer and your main course and all of that is something you just sort of forget about, don't experience, in anticipation of what it's going to be in the next moment and the next moment. Now, the highest form of sanity that's out there and available for all of us is this present moment, the now, and making a peak experience, being able to make a peak experience out of a present moment, out of any present moment. The old saying is that life is what happens to you while you're making other plans. And you must understand that every moment in your life is a miracle to be lived, that you must stop looking for miracles in something in the future, and that not falling in love with your plan means that if you want to get someplace terrific, enjoy every step along the way. And then if you want to alter that, let's say you want to be a physician. You're young and you go to school and you want and all that, and then you realize, no, I don't think I want to go to medical school. That doesn't have to be a horrendous kind of letdown or a failure of some kind. You simply say, I think I'll move in this direction now. I'm moving. And every day you have to live fully, rather than suffering or postponing your gratification or postponing your purpose in the pursuit of something in the future which may or may not arrive for you, and if it does, you'll very likely be a completely different person anyway. That's one of the hard things to understand. Heraclitus said, there's nothing permanent but change, Change is the only thing there always is, including all of us all the time. So if you set a goal for yourself for a long time, you have to understand that you're going to be very, very different from the person that you are now. I had a good friend who was an internist, and he was in his 40s, and he said to me, it's this practice that's just getting to me. I'm owned by it, I'm making a lot of money and all that, but I don't want to do this. I want to be a sportscaster. And he wanted to broadcast, and he wanted to practice on high school teams, and he'd always wanted to give that a try where he could be his own boss and not be a slave to it and all that. I said, well, why are you pursuing this? You're a physician and all that, but why would you want to continue doing that? He said, well, I decided a long time ago that I was going to be a physician, and that I can't change that now. I'm a doctor, and I said, who decided that you were going to be a physician? He said, well, I was 18 years old, and I made that decision. I said, would you go to an 18-year-old today to get vocational guidance for where you should be going in your life? Would you consult a teenager for that? He said, well, of course not. I said, well, isn't that what you're doing? If you're not happy and not being fulfilled in what you're doing in this moment, you have the option to change that. And you don't have to be attached to what you've been. What you've been is just the choices that you made then. And if you don't want to make those choices now, and I can hear a collective rumbling in America as I say that, which is, yes, but I have responsibilities. Yes, but I have a mortgage. Yes, but, and there's a lot of those yes, buts. And I say to you that if you have always been responsible and paid your bills, then that is who you are, and that's what you ought to consult, rather than someone who is telling yourself that a disaster is on the way if you make a choice to be something that you never dreamt you could be. When I left the professorship, and I left an opportunity to have tenure for the rest of my life and a lot of external kind of security, and resigned, and went across the country to talk about erroneous zones back in 1976, everyone told me how insane that I was. But I've never listened to what everyone else said, because you have to listen to who you are. And I knew that no matter what, my inner voices told me this is what I have to do, and you can't stop someone who knows they have to do it from doing it. The irony of that is that I made more money, and I never even tried to. I never thought I'd make money writing, because I'd already written a whole lot of books that didn't make any money, textbooks and so on. And writing was just something that I am. And it wasn't anything I could quit, stop. I didn't want to. I loved it. I felt fulfilled and so on when I wrote. And I knew that I was leaving footprints and all of those things. The irony is that after I finally resigned and did what I wanted to do, I made more money in the first year that I went out and did what I really believed in and loved than I had made the entire 35 years previously of my life, my whole life. In 1 year, I made more money. And that isn't because I was lucky. That isn't because I'm Wayne Dyer and I had any opportunity. I didn't have any more opportunity than anybody else. In fact, I had less. I came from complete poverty and many years in foster homes and orphanages and having to earn my own way through everything. Wasn't that at all. It was when you advance confidently in the direction of your own dreams and you go out there to live the life that you have imagined. Success will chase you and arrive in your life in external forms in an amount sufficient to take care of your needs. It will happen for you. As long as you stay there and tell yourself you've got to continue to do something, you've always done it because you've always done it, then the only payoff you get for that is to defend your misery. It's like arguing for your limitations. The only thing you get are your limitations. And the people who love you, care about you, your family and so on, will support you consulting your inner voices and your inner signals and doing what it is that you know you have to do. And if you picture yourself being successful at it, and you know that it's going to work, and you won't let any other image into you, it will get stored away within you exactly the same as if you were out working on it. And if you guide yourself by that image and just won't let that image out, you can't not make it happen. You can't. It's that law of the universe, because an image gets stored away the same as an experience. And every obstacle you just see as an opportunity to see what I've got to do to shift and to do it. Meantime, you're feeling purposeful and you're being purposeful. You're no longer looking for a purpose, you are your purpose.
I quote from the I Am discourses. The first expression of every individual everywhere in the universe, either in spoken word, silent thought, or feeling, is I am, recognizing its own conquering divinity. The student, me, you, all of us, endeavoring to understand and apply these mighty yet simple laws, must stand guard more strictly over his thoughts and expression, in words or otherwise. For every time you say, I am not, I cannot, I have not, you are, whether knowingly or unknowingly, throttling that great presence within you. These words, I am. I opened up this program with the words, I am well, I am perfect health. And where do you think they came from? What do these words, I am, mean? In Exodus chapter 3, and says, Moses, Moses. And the first words that Moses says to God are, here I am. Then he said, do not draw near here, this place. Take off your sandals and for your feet, for this place where you stand is holy ground. And God speaks to Moses and says, I want you to go to the Pharaoh and I want you to free your people. And Moses is going, wait, hold on here. Who am I? And who are you? Moses says to God, who am I that I should go to the Pharaoh and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? So he said, I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. Then Moses says to God, indeed, when I come to the children of Israel, and I say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? And God says to Moses, I am that I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial to all generations. My name is I am that I am. Now, every single time that you use the words I am, you are citing the name of God, right from the holiest books. And every time you say the words, I am weak, I am poor, I am unlucky, I am unhappy, I am sick, I am unable to attract into my life what you want, you are desecrating the name of God. God did not say, I will be. My name is, I hope things work out well. My name is, maybe things will show up that I wanted, but possibly not. He said, I am that I am. You must be conscious of how you use these words. I am. I am strong. I am well. I am content. Even if your senses tell you something different, I am. And as we move now into the meat of this program, you'll see that putting the words "I am" in front of something into your mind and imagination is a very powerful way to attract into your life, recognizing your own divinity. I am God is not blasphemy. It is your identity.
That our words are really decrees of what it is that we want to attract and what we want to create in our life. And I find myself in doing this show for 10 years, watching how people talk and respond when they'll say something like, well, that's very difficult, And I almost always stop them and say, let's look at that word, difficult, because that becomes a decree. It's like, if you say something is going to be difficult, and then in life you're offered an option of doing something that is difficult or doing something that is easy, you're going to pick the easy choice. And for example, people will often say I'll tell them about quitting smoking, about how I quit smoking, and I made a decision to do it, when I was a very young man back in my early 20s. And they'll say, yeah, but that's very difficult, and it's very difficult to overcome addictions. And I've overcome several addictions in my life that I didn't start out believing that it was going to be difficult, because if you do, then the first time that you're tempted to go back to having a cigarette or having that drink or taking that drug or whatever, the first thing that you say to yourself is, well, I can do something that's very difficult, which is to pass by it and have to live with the consequences of wanting it and desiring it. Or I can tell myself that this is really quite easy. All I have to do is not put a cigarette in my mouth. So, as I was reading this, she makes this comment in this chapter on Power Through Metaphysics. She says, I suggest that you spend a day just listening to yourself. Listen to the decrees that you make so casually. Things that people say, and here are some of them that I wrote down and that she had written down as well. Business is rotten. So that becomes like a decree. I've heard people say that. I have a dear friend who runs a golf driving range place, and I've heard him say so many times, business is terrible, business is terrible. When you start believing that it's the economy or that it's business, you're setting out a decree. It's literally a decree. And another is that kids today are a lost generation. So we look at the young people and we think, and we make this kind of a decree, and then every time we see a young kid doing anything, we sort of have this that we live up to. We'll never get there in this traffic. You can't trust anyone these days. It's not safe to walk in the streets. Don't touch that or you'll break it. With my luck, I'll probably, things won't work out. I've often heard people say this over and over again. Well, it's just not going to work out because with my luck, and instead of saying with my luck things are going to work out and I anticipate things are going to be great, that becomes a decree. Instead, we have these decrees about all the things that can't happen. I've never seen it fail. If I eat this, it's going to upset my stomach. I can feel a migraine coming on. They're going to rob you blind. She's a gossip. There's no point in trying, and on and on. And it's like when we think about just casually the words that come out of our mouth, and then she goes on to say, you can see the pattern. You've made the prophecies, and your attitudes govern your actions to the point where you make sure that those prophecies are fulfilled. It says, never forget, every word that you utter is a decree, whether positive or negative. When it is positive, it is manifested in good. When it's negative, only bad can follow. If your words are against someone, it's the same as condemning yourself. That person lives up or down to your expectations, at least where you are concerned. But when you speak with kindness and understanding toward others, they will return kindness and understanding to you. And when something unpleasant happens to you, don't think, I wasn't expecting that. Think instead of statements that you've made in the past that predicted and literally caused your misfortune. And this is the thing, that's what I underlined and wanted to say this morning. When something unpleasant happens to you, don't think, I wasn't really expecting that. Instead, begin to look at all of the statements that you've made in the past that have predicted and literally caused this misfortune, whatever it is that's taking place in your life. It could have been one of those idle statements like the ones that I just mentioned to you. Like every time I make an investment, I lose my shirt, or I have bad luck, or think with my luck things aren't going to work out, and so on. And so what I want, what I'm doing for myself as well is looking at, I think we can take this, Diane, to a level that isn't just about, these sort of minor things that I'm talking about. I think we can do this with the diseases that show up in our life, with the difficulty in relationships that show up in our life, with the absence of of abundance or prosperity or funding or money that show up in our life. If we were to take and just look at all of the things that exist in our present life and ask ourselves, how many times have I uttered statements or words or had ideas that I have proclaimed and decreed, and then they've showed up in my life.